Okay, it's 5:30, we'll call tonight's workshop session to order. And we do have a quorum present.
So Mayor and Council, tonight for workshop, we have two topics for you. The first is one I would describe as a cleanup with your dangerous substandard structure ordinance. But you know you have a new building official and he's seen things done a little differently. He thinks some changes to the ordinance could actually strengthen it and make it a little clearer for staff to use. The second one, the Old Town Zone revisions, this is something we talked about at council retreat. We're bringing back to you for further discussion and direction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire. Wayne.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, all our guests here tonight. Tonight's presentation here on the cleanup of the substandard ordinance. I wanted to talk to you about, start with a little bit of the background. The Chapter 214 of the Local Government Code is what provides us the ability to go into a substandard structure and have it abated, cleaned up, demoed, various options. The Local Government Code defines a nuisance as dilapidated, substandard, or unfit for human habitation. This chapter also defines how we can go through this process. It provides us details on providing notice of public hearing. We have to provide the public hearing. We make a determination. We allow that applicant or that person, that owner, the ability to appeal to the next level. And ultimately, we're getting to the point where we take action and the process that takes place there, as I just went over in the legal aspects of it. Some of the challenges that we have in our current ordinance is not very chronological. Also, when we look at the minimum standards that are shown in our ordinance, very subjective. What is dampness of a habitable room? 100% humidity is a damp to me, but for some of those, 50% is damp. So it's very subjective. Yeah, I'm from Louisiana originally. I'm an honorary Texan, I hope, but the point being is that it's very difficult to determine what is substandard when we don't have very objective terminology in our ordinance. And it's not very specific to commercial or other types of buildings. It's more in regards to residential in our current ordinance. So we wanted to clean it up to make it represent any structure, whether it's commercial, residential, or an accessory structure that we see in the backyard that's missing a roof, etc. With the updated ordinance, we're looking to make it a more chronological function. And also use the building code as it exists to define what those minimum standards are. We included some additional items in the ordinance that you won't find in the building code, but fundamentally we want to stick to the building code as much as possible whenever we're making a determination. And as I mentioned, this includes any type of structure with the ordinance, with the update. Procedurally, we're going to go through 6 steps. First and foremost, we're going to identify what that substandard process is. We're going to make the initial contact with that property. We're going to see what condition it is, and I'm going to take step 1 and talk about what it is to be substandard. And as I mentioned, when we get to that determination, in this step, I want to take the little strip shopping center that we've all seen get recently tore down over here. We never got out of step 1. We contacted the property owners. We gave them an assessment. We went through the process. We gave them the explanations, and ultimately, they tore down the building. So, for the most part, that's where we want to live, is in step 1. We don't want to have to proceed, but in the event that we do, we're going to go to the next step and provide that person or that group of the property owners a notice of hearing. Once we give them that notice of hearing, we schedule a date and we go to our public hearing. At that point, and here in Louisville, the City Council is the board that's going to make that determination. And when we're making a determination, as I mentioned, when we're looking at what that looks like and the objectivity of it, it's like taking what I had quotes in that first slide. The only thing Chapter 214 tells us is that it is up to us what those minimum standards are. Because all they tell us is dilapidated, substandard, or unfit for human habitation. If we all quickly take a snapshot of that, we'll all have a different picture of what that is. But if we can narrow what it is down and make it more objective, that determination will be much simpler to get to. We're required to provide them in the determination. Once we made that determination, they have 30 days to comply. If they can't comply with that, they could be allowed up to 90 days additional time to make amends or to meet the determination. And they have to provide us a specific plan. The 90 days is just saying that they have up to 90 days. That could be 60, it could be 30, it could be an additional week. But they only have up to 90 additional days. And in the process, we have the appeal. They have the ability to appeal. If they don't like our determination, they can appeal this to the district court and get a determination from them. If that does not happen within 30 days of the public hearing or from the determination that was made, the amount of time they were given, we can proceed and get to action. Once we take action, we're looking to demolish the structure, whatever that case is. We'll recoup the cost by putting liens on the property. We'll have to take care of the upfront costs, but ultimately when the property sells or changes hands, we will collect our resources through the lien process.
And I wanted to point out on top of that is that the process is set by statute. So we're not, what our process is currently isn't changing. So we're not changing the order of operations on how one of these cases are brought before City Council. Really, it's like Donna said, it is a cleanup to make sure it's as defensible as possible, it's as easy to read from the public as possible, and easy for our building inspectors to enforce. And our hope is to become more aggressive with regard to substandard structures. So, you may see, our hope is you won't see any of these because they get dealt with just working with the property owner. We do give time for property owners to figure out what it is, how to get their ducks in a row. But obviously, we don't want to have structures that can fall down on anyone or injure anyone in our city. So, with that.
Any questions?
When will you have the cleanup? I mean, when will this be done? As far as we'll get to see the language in it,
We'll bring the
specifics
ordinance-
versus.
Ordinance back to you.
Next meeting.
Next
meeting.
meeting.
Okay. That fast, great.
Thank you all very much.
It's easy.
Council, I wanted to also introduce, I'm not sure, I don't think Michelle actually presented to council before.
I have not presented, no.
So this is Michelle Berry, and she is our new planning manager, right? Is that your title? Yes, I thought so. And she comes from Keller and has an immense background for planning. So she's brought a lot of really great ideas to the table, and she's going to, Richard is out of town today, so she is going to handle the Old Town Zone revisions. Now, this isn't anything new for council. This is just a repeat of what you've heard before, but it's really drilling down on timelines and kind of breaking out how we think we should approach this. Instituting all the tools that council had said we're willing to consider going forward.
So, yes, thank you, Claire. So as she said, this is looking at Old Town, kind of the next steps. I did just want to kind of start with just a bit of a history so we all have the context of where we are today. We originally adopted the Old Town Master Plan back in 2003, and then a transit-oriented development plan for the train station in 2010. We updated that plan in 2017, and here's just kind of an exhibit from it, and it really did look specifically from Town Hall over east to the rail station. After we adopted this plan, we looked at kind of doing an Old Town assessment of this area that was considered in the transit-oriented development. And we did an assessment to identify existing legal non-conforming uses and legal non-conforming structures. And just to kind of go over what a legal non-conforming use or structure is it's a use or a structure that was in place and allowed at the time that it came in, but due to a change of the code, it wouldn't be permitted under today's ordinances. So legal non-conforming uses per our codes are allowed to continue, really as long as the business owner wants to operate them. They can even sell it to another owner. The only time that the use would really have to cease operating is if the business owner vacated it and it was vacant for 90 days. So once it's been vacant for 90 days, then it has to be occupied with a use that's allowed under today's code. There's similar regulations for non-conforming structures. They're given a bit more time. They don't have to be brought up till today's code until they're vacant for a year or more. So that's what nonconformity is. But we wanted to kind of see what the nonconforming uses and structures were, and we wanted to understand the current conditions from Mill Street over to Railroad Street, which was that TOD study area. So they produced a lot of maps that outlined all the existing uses, whether it was conforming or non-conforming, whether there was outdoor storage, and that was all part of the Old Town assessment. So that was designed to bring us forward to the next steps, which is looking at rezoning that section of Old Town. So when we look at the process, we wanted to start with the construction of Mill and Main, which is anticipated for September 2018, because we really wanted this to be kind of a step-by-step logical process so people can kind of see where we're starting and where we're going. So we want to wait for the construction to begin so people can see the investment that we're making in Old Town. And then our next step is we want to adopt a light industrial 2 zoning district. So this would be a new zoning district for us, and I'll talk a bit more about in the detail about that. The goal of this is a tool. It's a tool for when we rezone for existing businesses that they might be able to use. Then the third step would be to actually complete the rezoning of Old Town. Then there's some 4 steps that could come in at a later date. And one is to consider an amortization ordinance, looking at specific uses within a specific geographic area. And the other is to consider amending how we permit office uses in the Old Town Center District. And I'll talk a little bit more about those a bit later in the presentation. But that's overall what we see the timeline and the process looking like. Because again, we want to take this in bite-sized chunks. And our real goal is to rezone Old Town so that when new uses come in, they conform to our vision for the area. So the light industrial 2 zoning district, this would be a new zoning district. It'd be very similar to our existing light industrial zoning district. The key difference would be that we would allow some automotive repair uses and some automotive sales uses by right. When we have this on the books, we wouldn't actually apply it to a geographic area, but we'd adopt it as a district. And then it would be a tool for Old Town automotive related uses to ask for that zoning elsewhere in an appropriate area to rezone and just move there.
So in other words, no SUP.
No SUP. So there would have to be an initial rezoning, but once it's zoned that way, then any automotive uses would be allowed and they could come in and come and go. It would require individual requests to rezone, and staff would work with those applicants to direct them to specific areas, and we showed you those at the council retreat. And they would be areas of limited visibility, and so we do have a map that kind of shows some areas that we've initially identified. They wouldn't be limited to these areas if there's another area that's suitable because it's a low visibility area that still has, adequate access and services, that could be appropriate too. But if they asked us, well, where do you want us to look? This is kind of the direction we might give them. And again, these are areas that are low visibility on our major traffic carriers. So I-35, Valley Ridge, etc. So once we've adopted that tool, then we proceed with our Old Town rezoning. Now, since 2003, we've kind of had a goal for the zoning that we've wanted to have in Old Town. And so really it's been 15 years of trying to get there. And we've had a lot of people voluntarily rezone, as you can see here. But we do have a lot of this area that's still zoned light industrial or general business. And so we'd be looking at those areas specifically. And this is important because currently light industrial allows by right bottling works to come in, warehouse distribution centers to continue to come in, assembly manufacture uses, testing research laboratories, auto-related uses and self-storage with an SUP. Whereas our goals have been for Old Town is to have more of a mixed use, to have some more dense residential, single family, two family, to have hotels, retail, restaurant, those types of uses. So we want to get that zoning changed so that we can encourage those uses to locate in Old Town. So what we'd want to do is we'd want to have a few outreach meetings, some with developers to let them know what we're doing and that we're proactively getting their entitlements for them so that they can come in and just sort of put in their plans and build. And then one with property owners to talk to them about what this means for them and their business. Now, through the Old Town assessment, we've established that most of those properties are already legal non-conforming, so they would remain in that legal non-conforming status where they could continue to operate, continue to have their business. So we'd explain all that to them, go over any impacts of the change on their property, and introduce to them the Light Industrial 2 zoning district as an option if they are looking to expand or relocate to a very permanent location within Louisville. After we've had those input meetings and had that outreach process, then we would bring forward the public hearings. Because it's a zone change, it would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation and then come to the City Council for a final decision. So we would anticipate that happening in the spring 2019 because we do want to spend some time with the outreach process. And so then we look at rezoning just this area of Old Town that was part of the assessment. But internally, we've talked about potentially expanding that area as well, specifically to complete the Old Town Center or this core area, that 2 blocks of Main Street that's real historic. It's got those buildings that are very tight-knit. That's kind of the heart of Old Town and the core. Most of that area is actually currently zoned general business. So looking at expanding that so it goes 1 block over to the west so that we encapsulate that area and get that to our ultimate goal, which is Old Town Center zoning designation. And that shouldn't be too much. We want to do a little bit of a light assessment, but it's a relatively small number of businesses and uses, so we feel we can do that. And that might help complete that Old Town Center area. For the potential next phase, we'll be considering an amortization ordinance specifically for the uses that have over the 10% outdoor storage. With this ordinance, it would be geographically specific and for those types of uses. We've discussed giving them 10 years to come into compliance. And in addition to that 10 years, we would also give them an appeals process. Because when you're amortizing, what you're doing is you're giving the businesses an opportunity to recoup their initial investment before you say, okay, you can't do business as this use here anymore. So you give them that opportunity to recoup their investment, and you also put an appeal process. So if 10 years isn't enough for them, they can go through an appeals process and say, that's not enough time for me, and I need a little bit more time.
But it could always be set longer too initially.
It could be. And then we want to provide options for them to relocate to areas where there are appropriate zoning. So it's a much smaller group of people that's going to be impacted. And so I'll talk a little bit about the process. We want to have individual meetings where we really look at those businesses and those property owners on a one-on-one basis to really assess what their options are. And then we would do this after the rezoning is approved. This would be kind of a next step. We want to really get the zoning in place and kind of logically progress on from there. So this is the locations of commercial outdoor storage from the assessment. And the process to adopt would be those individual meetings with property owners or business owners, where we explain to them the impacts, where we give them all their potential options, and then public hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council after we've done that outreach with all of those business owners and had a chance to hear all their feedback and input. So then the next part of the next phase could be considering amending the office uses in the Old Town Center zoning district. And this would be based on the fact that we really want that 2-block range that's at the core of Old Town to be a really active entertainment area. We want retail uses, restaurant uses, uses that bring people in from the street and really engage with the street. Office uses don't do that as well. So we've potentially considering an ordinance that would change how office uses are permitted in Old Town Center to allow them on the 2nd floor or above, but if they're on the 1st floor to require a special use permit to kind of hopefully encourage more of those entertainment type uses to come in or office uses that do have an engaging face with the public. And then the existing office uses will become legally non-conforming, which, as we've discussed, means that they're allowed to continue. They're even allowed to sell to other office users, provided that space isn't vacant for 90 days or longer.
And we bring this up, council, this is not something, I think we talked about at retreat, but it has been brought up by the Maine and Mill Association. They're really the ones that have asked staff if this is possible.
So that's the process that we're looking at. So again, we want to wait for the construction to begin, adopt the LI2 zoning district this winter, and then do the rezoning in the spring with the potential amortization and office ordinance amendment to follow.
I wanna make sure it's clear that when she says potential. So when you rezone, there's no amortization that is part of that rezoning. That is a standalone rezoning, and the businesses get to continue operating as, as they normally have. They just become a non-conforming use. So if they go away for 3 months and they've abandoned their use, they've decided I'm not gonna do this anymore, then they have to become conforming. But other than that, they get to continue operating. Amortization is something for a later date for council to decide if they want to do that. So our plan is not to start working on that ordinance at all. The plan is to bring that back to you guys and see, once we have done the rezoning, is this enough? Where's the market taking us? Do we have enough change that amortization is not necessary? And if it's not necessary, we'll present that back to council. We don't think it's necessary.
But being already rezoned, then when they go to sell, the property's worth more money because it's already rezoned. They don't have to go through the process. So whoever buys it, the developer can move in quicker and make it faster. And so for them, it's more valuable all the way around.
Yes, the zoning category that we would be rezoning them to is upzoning. So we are giving them more development rights.
They get a larger percentage of their land they can develop on, they can go to greater density, and so they could get more value out of the land.
So go back to the chart, the bubble chart that has your dates, target dates.
Getting there.
So council, what we're recommending is that we certainly get the Main and Mill project underway. David is out on bid on that project, and so it should be moving forward. Where's David? So it should be moving forward with construction.
Some time frames.
So we're on track. So anything after that is up to you guys as to when you want that to occur. Adopting the LI2 zoning is just a category that we're defining. So that's something that we can, it's a tool that we would develop and would be on a shelf and available for use. And then the issue of when you might want to rezone Old Town is completely and totally up to you. So as Michelle said, we've been working on this for 15 plus years. And you've seen some rezoning occur. You could continue that process and let it occur over time, or you could rezone and move it forward more quickly. Amortization certainly, I think, is a tool that should be somewhat of a last resort. It should come later, if necessary. So what we would need tonight is whether or not, number one, this step-by-step process is what you envisioned when we talked about it at retreat, and if these timeframes are something that you're interested in proceeding with.
I'll go first. I like the time frame on this. I think it's good. And the great part about this is only a benefit to the property owner.
Yes.
No way does it hurt them at all because they can continue to operate as legal non-conforming use. So it's only a benefit to the owner. And I think we should also go on the amending the office uses, especially with the direction. I think that we should try to get that one in as soon as possible, as a next step right after number 3.
Okay.
The amortization part of it, I think we leave that until this all gets done and then we sort it all out.
I think as we're going through the time frame, I would like to maybe get a report from the economic development team on where if these things were in place sooner, would it have changed process? Get where I'm going there? If over the next 12 months or so, these being in place versus not being in place, if they created opportunities or disadvantages, just to kind of get an idea, because like we're talking about with the amortization piece, it may be that those just naturally occurred and happened, but by the same token, if they held up anything that's in process now, I'd be interested to know that too.
And if you'll remember, we had a study done, and Paris came in and presented that to you. And one of the biggest challenges in that area of town is really assimilating the properties. So certainly if you have that consistent zoning in that area, that's gonna make, I think, that assimilation somewhat easier, but you still have the challenge of assimilating the properties.
Well, and we still have the challenge of the different types of properties right up against each other. So
That's right.
trying to get that upscale development and they see, you know, a rusted out dump yard, that's a hard thing.
It's
Yeah.
getting that vision in front of everyone. Mika, did you want to add anything?
No, I think it's just, it's all, presentation says it all. We have had that challenge for the last 15 years. Little by little, we are kind of chipping away from it. And you may be right, Councilman Gilmore, that once some of these catalyst projects come in, it would accelerate that. It's just, this is again another tool that we could use moving forward.
I think more residential down by the rail stop. So you have it on both ends and that development starts moving inward. I think that's what you're gonna see. And as Brent said, that makes your property more valuable as you see that development.
I just think we need to focus on, make sure we're doing the outreach to the property owners, make sure they
Yes.
understand that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's nothing more important than public education and communication.
Yes.
I agree that, with the time frame that Brent talked about, getting the rezoning of Old Town done and then following quickly with the office uses. But I also agree that we need to make sure that we do a good job of education, not just to the property owners, but to the public at large, because as the firestorm on Facebook this afternoon indicates, there's a lot of misinformation that gets put out, so.
Yes, Facebook is an interesting challenge.
Yeah, Steve,
I'm with Brent.
okay. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think the only thing in here that's even better is that we have multiple touch points that are identified in this about outreach to the community. So as long as we're following through on those touch points that are built into this, I think that's key. So it's all about communication. It's, you know,
It is.
people hear eminent domain, they hear rezoning, they hear conflict of interest, they hear these phrases and it's like lighting a match. They don't even think through the process, right? They throw a word out there and it creates this thing in people's heads and they stop reading. They stop listening, they stop engaging in a dialogue, and that is not what we want. We want to make sure that folks engage in a dialogue. Maybe some people on Facebook would much rather just light a match and watch everything burn, but that's not how I appreciate it.
This city council has been very focused for over 20 years on enhancing Old Town and the progress. The mayor can talk about this specifically. That's occurred over the last 20 plus years is fairly amazing. And certainly that same goal is what we are desiring to continue, improving Old Town.
Do you need anything else from us on this topic?
I don't think so. I think we're clear.
Okay. What do we have next?
Agenda?
We ready to move on to the
Yes.
agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll be able to take a break here in just a minute then. Okay, we'll start with the invocations on self, pledge to the American Texas flags, signed Mayor Pro Tem Daniels. Then we've got a public hearing. Any questions?
And this is just to get those 6 rooms in, that's the only variance that they're asking for.
That's correct.
Okay. Now we're on the consent agenda. Any questions?
On item 2, Mayor, that is an item that was in this year's budget, and you'll see that we are recommending the firm of Parkhill, Smith and Cooper, but we're looking at that in 2 phases now. So the first phase, we're going to look at facility condition assessment, the spacing and staffing allocations, and that's about $76,000. That's what's on your agenda tonight. So then we would move, you budgeted $100,000. We would then move to phase 2. We would add the $48,000 to next year's budget. And that would get the specific space planning and the concept plans, and that's for 2 of your campuses. That's for the municipal annex campus, and that's for the Keeley campus. If we have a good experience with this firm, and the staff spent a lot of time interviewing different firms to get to this point, there may be a third phase that we were going to look at, and that would be related to public safety. You know that in your bond program, you have the addition of a floor to the police building, and you don't have really anything for Central Fire Station. So as you look to future bond programs, we may want to look at something different for the police station. You know, as we step back and looked at that and assessed that building, adding an additional floor may not be the best decision. So we may be looking at this 3rd floor, or a future program for public safety. So I just want to get that out, that thought in front of you. So we'll go through these first 2 phases and then perhaps a 3rd later.
Any questions? Item 3. Item 4.
Council, I think this is a really unique project that staff's been working on, made possible with money that we've received from basically to the Hudson Foundation and Mary Kay under the Economic Development Agreement. I'd like for Claire to just spend a minute talking to you about this project.
So we are so excited to bring this to City Council because this is a great opportunity for the kids that live in Louisville. But also grows our economic basis to have homegrown entrepreneurs that will stay in Louisville hopefully for the long term. So originally we had thought we had received some money from the Hudson Foundation as well as from Mary Kay, and the idea was that we would put this towards youth or other entrepreneur programs through our Entrepreneur Center. Since we moved away from our Entrepreneur Center idea in the bank building, we were trying to find another outlet for that money because that's really what those foundations had given us this money for. So what other entrepreneur program, especially with kids, could we do? So we reached out to LISD and told them about what are you interested in entrepreneur-wise? What are your programs? How can we expand on that? And there was a program that Capella ISD was using. We went to go watch it, and it is so cool. So these kids go to they sign up for a year-long class, and they decide to get put in cohorts. So you don't just hang out with your friends and get put in a cohort. You basically have one person who's the creative and one person who's the financial person. Kids who are specializing in what their areas of interest are. They then get together as a group and they come up with a business plan together. People from the community, the LISD will find mentors for them in the business community within our community and within Louisville to come mentor them. So, you know, if in marketing, they may have someone who's a marketing expert in the community come and become a mentor to these kids. They will then work on a business plan. They go through testing their hypotheses on how these work. They formulate this, and by the end of the program, they pitch their idea like Shark Tank to a board of directors. The board of directors, if you're lucky, has some money to invest. So some of the board members will bring money of their own. ours happens to be part of this money that we're giving. So not only are we giving money for them to start the program, but we're also holding back some money as seed money, so that when they pitch their idea to the board, ultimately that board gets to decide who they want to invest in. And so we can then invest in these kids' programs to start their own business. That board will be made up of different business leaders within our community, but also at least one council member will be put on the board. One person from the Mary Kay and one person from the Hudson Foundation will be on that board. We think it's a great opportunity, and this is just some of the pictures of the kids. You can see some of the things that they talk about. LISD is going to be looking at this agreement in their next meeting at the beginning of June. So we're the first to sign, and then they will run the program completely. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, it is really exciting.
When are they planning on starting this fall? The
Yes.
program? Awesome.
Yeah. So they would have to send their teachers, right now they're getting it in place to send their teachers to training, because they have to go to a national training on it.
So when we began working with Mary Kay on our economic development agreement, normally we require that they make a contribution to community activities and events. And that's just stated generally in the ED agreement. Normally that money goes to special events. Western Days is where most of that money has gone. With Mary Kay, they were very different. They said, no, we will only invest in certain things. And certainly the whole issue of entrepreneurism is a huge issue with Mary Kay Ash, the ultimate entrepreneur. And so this fits very well with the goals of the company. We were pretty limited in what they were willing to invest in. And certainly the Hudson Foundation has a real focus on kids in general. And so those two just seem to mesh well together.
Exciting.
In addition to that, also, we added on that we wanted some additional marketing rights with LISD to distribute for our special events, and they agreed to that as well. So that was a nice bonus as well.
And it will only be in Louisville schools, Louisville High School. That was obviously also a requirement. Flower Mound wants to do it, they need to come up with their own resources.
Okay. Anybody have anything else on that one?
Awesome.
Number 5? Item 6?
I'd like to pause here at number 6 too and talk a little bit more about this one in detail. You'll remember back a number of years ago when Wayne Ferguson passed away that there was a drive at that point in time to raise money for a sculpture of Wayne to go in the plaza. And at that point in time, that money was not found. And so we've had some general conversation with Alex Buck. He revitalized that drive just recently. And we feel we are at a point that he has that money confirmed. It would require a city match. But I think now the bronze that they've come up with is so unique and so much better than the first one that we saw that I'm really, really glad we paused. James, you want to talk a little bit about
Certainly.
bronze?
Just a reminder, the original bronze that was looked at was going to be about 110% of actual size, standing bronze, and the price tag at that started at $100,000, and by now we think it'd been more like $140,000, $150,000. This one is coming in at $90,000. The artist is a fan of wonderful. Amanda Ferguson is here, and I know Alex is planning to be here, but I told him 6:30, so he might be here later. So this one, Amanda located this artist. The previous artist has moved out of state, no longer does bronze. This artist, David Isles, is out of Sanger, I believe, one of those north of the lake cities. And he has done commissioned work. He did some commissioned work for Trammell Crow. Trammell Crow is alive. He's done commissioned work for Denton, Frisco, Irving. He has works on display at University of North Texas. He's done commissioned works for the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center down in Austin. So he's done a lot of really good work. So have you ever seen at Rotary Park in Irving, the hippos in the water? That's a David Isles sculpture. So he does really good stuff. And he interviewed a number of people about Wayne Ferguson to get a feel for what kind of man this was. And he came back with this sculpture. And there's a description in your packet, but just basically what he wanted was something that would show Wayne Ferguson's vision, his passion, but also his humility. He was a humble man who took a lot less credit than he deserved for a lot of his work. So here he is seated on the wall in the plaza and looking up, watching people as they walk in. In his hands, he's looking at a plan of the plaza itself that bears his name. To his right are some rolled up maps that represent many of the other projects he worked on through the years. Maybe the Vista Ridge Shopping District is one of those, I don't know. And then to his left, to our right, those are personal items that reflect his passions, the things he was fond of. There's a saddle blanket, chaps, his favorite spurs, and a buck knife that resembles one he himself made and carried with him. So very personal, very approachable. I will tell you the location here, we did work with the artist and moved it down to the next section of wall. Stacy and Naya made a very good catch for us. That was way too close to the splash pad, and the chlorinated water would have eaten at the patina for the copper. So I'm just going to move down one section. Other than that, this is the sculpture that the Arts Advisory Board unanimously recommended council approve so we can move forward. And maybe the best news, the artist says a timeline of 8 to 10 months or 8 to 12 months. So if all goes well, we could be dedicating this at next year's Colorpalooza Festival.
And the family has blessed this sculpture, and the family member is here. So Amanda, I don't know if you wanted to add anything?
No, if anybody has any questions, I'm glad to ask or answer, but,
Anybody have any questions for Amanda?
Money is available?
I love it. And I know, like at Texas Tech, they've done an incredible job with their artwork. And the ones like this where people can, you're gonna have kids sitting on his lap, they're gonna be, with their arm around him. That is going to be the most photographed statue. It's gonna be extremely used and popular. Approachable.
that was a large part of it. It's just something that was interactive and approachable and hands-on for those that really don't have the opportunity, be close to public art or anything. And a lot of times they get the don't touch, hands off. So that was kind of the premise behind this one.
Council might recall when the Earth and Beyond statue was first proposed by the Arts Alliance, there was some public feedback of what we really need in the plaza is a historical type of bronze, which is why that sculpture is on the MCL Grand Grounds. Now, what those people didn't know is we already were talking with Amanda and the family about what can we do to kickstart this thing and bring it back in. It's been something that's in the Arts Master Plan. It's in 2025 discussion that we need this. And it would be really great for us to be able to do 2 public art dedication ceremonies 1 year apart during Colorpalooza.
That's really neat.
Anything else?
It's pretty cool.
Looking good. We're down to regular hearings, item 7. Any comments? Okay. Item 8. Resignation.
Does somebody have recommendations?
On number 8, there is, that is limited to a person who's an employee of the medical city of Louisville. And so I believe there's a name in your backup that's an employee that has agreed to serve.
It's already been one meeting.
Somebody have that one? I don't know that. Do you have it, Neil?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Number 7. We had Mr. Shaw, what else do we have on 7?
Mustaine, and 2 ladies, I don't remember their names off the top of my head.
Jocelyn McMurray and Nico. Can't pronounce her last name.
Do we have a recommendation?
I kind of like Mustaine. I don't think he's on any other board at this time.
Shula's on another board, right?
Shula's on Parks. Mustaine is not on any other board. They're all CU graduates, so it's kind of an even playing field here. But Jim has already a considerable involvement with community issues to begin with. So
Yeah, the
this seems to be
CDBG would be
his
good for
domain.
him.
Yeah.
This is kind of his area of interest to begin with, so I think
TJ?
I
so we can stand in.
That was my selection, but I wasn't gonna leave it.
Number 7, you'll take that one. Okay. Now we're down to item 9. naming, NGC naming committee.
So, Council, in your backup, we talk about, from the other committees, individuals who have already agreed to serve. So from your park board would be William Schul, as well as Cindy Meredith. From 2025, Karen Locke, and Bradley Sykes from your Youth Action Council. So that would leave us needing 2 members of the city council to serve on the board.
That's it?
Yes,
That's all we need.
I'll throw my name in.
I could do it, I certainly spent a lot of time with this ahead of coming to council with it.
Come up with something better than Rise.
Anybody else? Okay.
If it's not the Brent Daniels Rec Center, then I don't
You know,
That was the third choice, I thought.
Okay.
We might do that if we spell Rick with a W.
Okay, Brent, you want to take that one?
Uh,
Get down to it?
Yeah, sure, I will. And that was Bob and Neil, right?
Yep.
Yep. Those 2 volunteers.
Okay.
Okay, we're now down to reports. Do we have anything right now? Okay. And you do have the quarterly investment reports. And then we'll go around the dais until when we get up there. So, and what about closed session?
we will have a closed session.
We will? Okay. And is that everything we have for right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock in the council chamber.
What? We should have started at 6.
It's 7 o'clock. I'll call tonight's meeting of the Louisville City Council to order. First item of business is the invocation given by myself, followed by the pledge to the American and Texas flags by Mayor Pro Tem Daniels. If you would join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Next item is public hearing.
Item C, public hearing. Consideration of an ordinance granting a special use permit for a hotel with rooms containing a cooktop or oven and 1 associated variance request on 2.327 acres located at southeast corner of Lake Vista Drive and East Vista Ridge Mall Drive. Element Hotels requesting an SUP to allow rooms with a cooktop or oven and a variance to allow a reduction of the minimum room size to 288 square feet for 6 rooms. P&Z recommended approval by a vote of 7-0. Recommendation is that the City Council approve the ordinance and 1 associated variance request as set forth in the caption. I have Michelle Berry, Planning Manager, available for questions, and Dane Ram.
Available for questions also?
Yes, also available for questions, and also I have Jigar Patel who wishes to speak.
Okay. Go ahead. Just your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Jigar Patel, 222 West Las Colinas Boulevard, Irving, Texas.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Mayor, council, men and women, thank you for giving us an opportunity to present our hotel project in Las Colinas. This is a Element Hotel by Westin or Marriott now. So it's that's the site, as you can see. It is what is now known in now known in Louisville as the Hotel Corridor. I just wanted to share some existing Element Hotel exterior photos and some interior photos. So this is one of the Element Hotel in Las Vegas. Our hotel is going to be very, very similar to this one. This is kind of a side photo. This is a interior typical guest room photo. And these are existing Element Hotel. This is not just a drawing. These are existing hotels. Later on, if you would like, I can take you on a tour of the room. We have a virtual reality of another Element Hotel. So if you would like, I can do that during Q&A. If you would like me to do that. This is for a room. And this is for the lobby. So the lobby is very spacious, very welcoming, very contemporary and modern design. And that's the national average of Element hotels. The RevPAR for this hotel is, a national average is about $129. So it's a very high-end hotel. It is not a mid-scale or a lower mid-scale hotel. It is a high-end hotel. This is a potential tax revenue that we are hoping to bring to the city of Louisville. The employment we'll be creating would be 28 direct jobs with annual pay of about $540,000. Not only that, I know that it is very important for cities to make sure that we are training the team members we will be employing at our hotels. So they will have access to one of the best training available that's free of cost to all the team members who would be working for us at the hotel. We are asking for a variance only and only for 6 rooms, which are going to be less than 325 square feet. Let me explain that a bit. Technically, they're not less than 325 square feet, but when we were studying Louisville market and looking into what kind of rooms and hotel we want to have in Louisville, what we noticed is it has for the last few years created a market for families or reunions or sports team who are coming into Louisville market. So this room type, what it has 2 rooms or 3 rooms which will be connected to a joint living room. So 6 rooms would be that. The structure would be these 3 rooms would be connected to a joint living room, where if a family or a group or a sport group decides to come to Louisville, and if they want to have a common place where they come together to discuss their next day or plans, then they would be able to do that. So I think it's a feature that we are adding, but due to the rules, we have to ask for that variance. But it is not that we are shrinking our room size. If you look at our average room size, then they are 420 square feet at least, if you look at collectively at all the rooms. We will have a 1,524 square feet of meeting space, swimming pool, fitness center, a bar, and we will be having an enhanced landscaping for the hotel. Right, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? I think that'll be it. Thank you. Anything else, Patty? Okay.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
With variance?
With the variance.
Okay.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Mayor, I need to read the caption.
Yes, just to read.
We haven't done a hotel in a long time.
Sorry.
Yes, Counselor.
This is an ordinance of the Louisville City Council amending the zoning ordinance by granting a special use permit for a hotel with rooms containing a cooktop or oven on approximately 2.327 acres legally described as Lot 5A1, Block A, Vista Ridge 35 Edition, located at the southeast corner of Lake Vista Drive and East Vista Ridge Mall Drive, and Zone Light Industrial District, providing for repealer, severability, penalty, and an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Mayor, I do want to say, Element is a great flag. This is going to be a wonderful addition to our city.
Yes.
So,
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Visitors Citizens Forum. At this time, any person with business before the council not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the council. No formal action can be taken on these items at this meeting. Mayor, I have no cards.
Okay.
Consent agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. For a citizen to request removal of an item, a speaker card must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. As a side note, we have Alex Buck and Amanda Ferguson present in support of item 6. Mayor, I have no cards.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Motion carries. Thank y'all for getting that done.
Item 7, consideration of acceptance of resignation of Debbie Fu from place number 7 on the CDBG Advisory Committee, declaration of a vacancy, and appointment to place number 7. The recommendation is that the City Council accept the resignation, declare a vacancy, and consider an appointment as set forth in the caption.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to move that the City Council accept the resignation, declare a vacancy, and consider the appointment of Mr. Jim Mustaine to the place number 7 of the CDBG Board, which Mayor Carey used to call the hardest working board in the city of Louisville.
Well, it must be true then. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 8.
Consideration of acceptance of resignation of Craig Roberts from place number 1 on the Arts Advisory Board, declaration of a vacancy, and appointment to place number 1. Recommendation is that the City Council accept the resignation, declare a vacancy, and consider an appointment as set forth in the caption.
Okay. Councilman Ferguson.
Yes, Mayor, except I'm looking for my notes.
Okay.
I'm looking for the name.
Call the name?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody have a help for Neil on the name on that one?
Pulling the back up.
It's Tanya Nugent.
Tanya, what's her last name?
Nguyen?
Nguyen.
Nguyen. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's what I couldn't come up with. Okay, so I move to accept the resignation of Craig Roberts and appoint Tanya Nguyen to this position on the Arts Advisory Board.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Just a quick comment I'd like to make on Craig. I don't know how many people really knew him. I got to know him very well, and I am really going to miss, I think Tanya will do a great job, but I'm really going to miss having Craig on that board. He gave it 110% all the time, and so I'm sad to see him go. And so I wish him best in his new job, but I'll really miss having him on that board.
Maybe he can come back sometime.
Maybe he can.
Item 9, appointment of members to the MGC Naming Committee. Recommendations that the City Council appoint 2 City Council members, 2 Park Board members, 1 2025 Board member, and 1 Youth Action Council member to serve on the MGC Naming Committee.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Daniels?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to nominate to the board of the MGC Naming Committee, William Scholl from the Park Board, Cindy Meredith from the Park Board, Karen Locke from the 2025 Board, Bradley Sykes from the Youth Action Council, Bob Troyer from City Council, and also Councilman Neil Ferguson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now we're down to the reports. Reports about items of community interest regarding which no action will be taken. Nika? Nothing? Okay, nothing? Got almost all new people up here tonight, so.
Mayor, the lake's about 3/10 below the conservation pool.
Nothing? Eric? Mayor Pro Tem Daniels?
Yes, Mayor. When I was a kid, we always played the game back in elementary school where you'd start on one end of the room and go to the other room, into the room, and somebody would whisper something in their ear, and by the end of the line, it was always completely different. Y'all have all played the telephone game. We played it a lot. Well, unfortunately, today, Facebook has become the new telephone game. And watching Facebook today, hearing stuff about the city's forcing people out and rumors and stuff that just aren't true. Well, there is no Snopes for the city of Louisville, but I will put it out there. I'm going to say, if you'll take a look, you can always look on the city council page, but get your pens out. My email is bdaniels@thecityoflouisville.com. If you have a question, you can email me. Get your pencils out. My telephone number for my cell phone number is 972-898-5361. When you hear something that sounds like a lie, it probably is. Please call me on my cell phone. I may not be able to always answer it right then, but I will get back with you. I may not know the answer right away, but I will find the answer for you. So please don't spread rumors. And unfortunately, there's some people that like to throw out comments on Facebook that there's enough in there that's true, but they're missing the real stuff in it, that it becomes misleading, if not duplicitous in itself. Don't believe them. So if you want to call me on my cell phone, email me. I will be glad to give you the answers. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Jones? No. Councilman Gilmore?
And I think the same goes for all of the council and the mayor as far as accessibility. I don't know of a group of folks that are less accessible than your city council and your mayor. We all have phone numbers, emails, addresses. We are your neighbors. So if you have questions, go to the source, and then make your decision. With that being said, I do also want to let folks know that we want to also get your input. Our Convention and Visitors Bureau is doing some wonderful historical research about Louisville, and we're asking our residents to come out and help define Louisville history this Thursday on June 7th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the First Baptist Church in Louisville. That's 1251 Valley Ridge Drive. Come, share stories, photos, artifacts. You know, part of what makes Louisville so cool is that we're kind of the biggest little town you'll ever run into. The problem is when you get to a size, sometimes that history gets a little lost. And so this is an opportunity to help keep that history and maintain those things that make us so unique. So I encourage all of you to come on out, help us gather that information so we can protect it and leave it here for our kids, our grandkids, and Louisvillians yet to come. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay. City Manager?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Ferguson?
Ms. Mayor, I have several things. The MCL Grand live performance coming up on May 26th, Pollo Burrito y Jorge Glenn in concert. Then Texas Tunes final concert comes up June 16th, and that will present the Quaby Sisters, who are internationally famous, so that's going to be a very sold-out show very quickly if it isn't already. Public events, we have a stage play on June 9th called Mommy, I Forgive You. We have the art pop-ups in the plaza on Saturdays. Those are different types of artists doing different types of things. Just come and see what's going on and be surprised. Pilates in the plaza continues Thursdays and Saturdays, yoga in the plaza on Wednesdays, and as always, acoustic jam on Fridays, typically in the gallery, but sometimes we move over to the recital hall. Art exhibits, Texas Bigger and Bolder just opened in the main gallery, and Val's Visual Arts League's cell phone shots continues through June 9th in the North Quarter. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Troyer.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Councilor? City Secretary's office? Okay. Officers, thanks for your service to the community. Next, we'll have a closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code Subchapter D, Section 551.072, Real Estate Property Acquisition. Number 2, Section 551.087, Economic Development, Deliberation regarding Economic Development Negotiations. And 3, Section 551.071, Consultation with Attorney, Legal Issues regarding the payment of cable service franchise fees by Charter Communications 6, LLC, DBA, Spectrum Cable. We will now go into executive session. Okay. We'll reconvene. Is there any action to be taken?
Yes, Mayor, I move to authorize the city's legal counsel to pursue underpayments of cable services franchise fees from Charter Communications VI, LLC, doing business as Spectrum Cable, including hiring outside counsel and filing suit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Is there any other action?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned.